welcome to Tim Connolly Drums. Well, today I have decided after much time thinking about this that I am going to talk about the myths of musical exposure. Being a musician and playing for free because of exposure. Now, like I said, I've been thinking about doing this video for quite some time, but I got pushed over the edge when I read a comment today on one of my videos. I think it was mine. There's no money in music in Ontario. A lot of people are misunderstanding that video, and I'm going to do another video explaining a little bit more of what I was talking about in that video. But this comment that this person said was basically they've been playing gigs for free for 30 years. This kind of pushed me over the edge because exposure is all about playing for free, and it's a myth. So I'm going to give you the rundown of what exposure is, how it works for those people that are, not in the music scene and they don't understand the whole exposure thing. I'm going to break it all down for you. So first of all, let me just start off by saying exposure in the modern day is bullshit. It's not what it used to be. Exposure today in 2024 is not what exposure was in 1984, okay? So, exposure in 1984, yes. Did I do it? Yes. I played lots of gigs back in the 80s for little or no money. The old chicken wing and beer gigs. Yes, I did those gigs where I did not get paid because I was told by the owners of these venues or the band leader or the agent or the manager that somebody is going to see us. Somebody big in the music industry is going to come and see us play. And that's why we're playing for exposure. Well, I got news for you. It's very, very rare, and it never happens anymore. So back in the day, back in the 70s, 80s, bands used to play in different scenes in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, LA, Chicago, New York, you name it. And a lot of them weren't making very much money, if any money. But they were playing potentially the top spot where they would go and play in hopes of an A&R guy showing up from a record label, or a big name manager coming to see them play, or a big name agent or something like that. A lot of bands did do that. And it's a bit of a shame because they still deserve to get paid, and we'll get into that very soon. But they did it because they were hoping for fame. They wanted to hit the big time, and they figured that, when I'm still small in the scene, I gotta suck it up and I've gotta play for exposure. Now, that was back in the day. This simply is not the case anymore. And I encourage you in 2024, do not play for exposure. If you want to play for exposure, do what I'm doing right now. Shoot a video and put it on TikTok, put it on YouTube, put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram. Get people to see you, and make sure the only way you're going to get any interest, if you're a musician just playing the guitar, if you're a drummer playing along with tracks, or if you're actually in a full band, the only way you're gonna get seen is if it goes viral. So you have to have a viral video for modern day exposure. Now, if you're monetized, you might make some money on YouTube or Instagram or wherever. You might make some money if your video goes viral. That'd be awesome. But most of you guys out there filming, singing, guitar playing, drumming, whatever, you're not making any money. So you're doing it for exposure. And the modern way is like I'm doing it right now. Now, I'm not doing this for exposure, but that's a whole different thing. Now, modern day exposure does not exist. If you think that you're playing on your weekend band and you go and you play in some bar somewhere in any city, insert city here, doesn't matter where it is. If you think that A&R guys, agents, managers, all the big people that I mentioned earlier are going to show up to see you play, it just doesn't happen. The only time that those people will come nowadays and see you play is if you're viral, like I mentioned. Number two is, which has happened to me many, many times, an A&R guy will come and see you play, but it's been prearranged. Or an agent will come and see you because you go to his showcase, which is also prearranged. So the days of the random A&R guy, the random agent showing up to see you play without you knowing, just walking through the door and hoping that whatever band is in there is going to be the next big band, you're dreaming. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. There was a time, like I said, where that could have happened. A lot of bands got discovered. If I'm not mistaken, the Beatles manager discovered them just by going into the venue because he'd heard so much of great things about them. Brian Epstein goes into the venue and sees them play in Liverpool in that crappy little bar, which I've been in. I've been in that bar that the Beatles started off in. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'll insert here. So those days are gone. Nothing like that happens nowadays. So playing for exposure, you're cutting your own throat because you're not going to make a dime. Nobody's going to come and see you. Now, if you're playing for exposure because your band is just starting out, you're playing at your friend's house, you're playing at your friend's, playing on your friend's boat, you're playing a party, you're playing a wedding, and yes, you're playing for exposure, but it's your friends, that's different. That's totally fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I've done it lots of times. I just did it not long ago, a couple weeks ago. So that's fine. What I'm talking about when it comes to real exposure is you're being told and manipulated by the manager, owner of a venue, even maybe your own agent and or manager possibly will tell you this as well. And they're manipulating you. They're telling you that if you play this gig for free, you're going to get seen. Somebody is going to see you. No, they're not. Nobody's going to see you except for average Joes that really know nothing about music. You'd be lucky if you even get a musician in there to see you. Now, here's another funny thing about if you're a professional working musician, you're not going to see other local bands on Friday and Saturday unless they're playing right in the same area as you and you're on your break and you heard that such and such a band is playing at the club across the street and you just want to check them out. That really doesn't have anything to do with exposure. It's just one musician checking out another group of musicians. That's all that is. That's not really exposure. Exposure from modern perspective is a dead thing. So when your band manager or especially club owners or whatever come, yeah, we're going to give you a gig, but we're not going to pay you. You're going to play for exposure. You're being duped. You're playing for free. It's rehearsal. Because anyone that comes out to see you, very rarely does anything happen from it. Now, I will say this. I played many, many gigs where people have come up to myself or the singer or even, if they knew who the band leader was, they go up to the band leader and they say, hey man, I'm interested in hiring you for a party. I'm interested in hiring you for a wedding. That's a totally different thing because you're not going to break into the big time just by doing this wedding or party for them. That's just another gig, potentially. Now, the interesting thing about that is for every 100 people that approach you and say, yeah, I'm interested in hiring you, how many of those 100 actually turn into a real gig where you really get paid, you actually did play their wedding or their function or their bar mitzvah, their party, whatever? 1 or 2 in 100 actually branch out into that. Now, some people would say, hey, that's 1 or 2%. That's actually pretty good. Now, in that situation, it's okay. It's okay, and you want to take those gigs, but you're being paid, and then you're getting another paid gig. The chances of you being in an unpaid situation and developing into a paying situation, that's very, very slim. So the bottom line of all of this is, don't devalue yourself. I felt like when I saw that comment that the guy was devaluing me, he was devaluing himself, and he was devaluing the music industry as a viable career. It's not an easy career in music, I know, because I've been in it for 40 years. But the joy of playing overrides the money? No, it doesn't. I sucked you guys into that. If you're doing it literally for fun, you got a job and you don't care, then you're doing it for fun, don't care about money. But if you're a career musician, you spent hours, thousands of hours, you put your 10,000 plus hours into all that practice. You went to music school. You were told by all the teachers at the music school that you're going to make money in this industry, but you have to be good to make money. Well, to some extent that's true, but there's always going to be bands out there that work for free, that cut your throat because they're not the greatest musicians, but they'll work for exposure. Meanwhile, the paying gigs, well, they're dying because of these guys that want to work for exposure. So if you're a professional musician and you're trying to make money, don't devalue yourself. Your mortgage payment, your rent payment, your car payment, your food on your table, it all depends on what you negotiate. So I take this very seriously, and even though I do enjoy being on stage and I love playing and I love those moments where you're experiencing the highs of being on stage in front of a cheering audience, a clapping audience, all that. But at the end of the day, there's also a joy after the gig when the band leader comes to you and says, not only did you play well, but here's some money for your effort. And the money was pre-negotiated and it's the right amount that you deserve to get paid. That's another thing. Guys that will just accept whatever they're being offered. Negotiate a wage. Negotiate a fair wage of what you think you're worth. If you're do you think Vinnie Colaiuta, Steve Smith, Steve Vai, any of the great musicians in the world, do you think that they're getting paid peanuts? No, they're not. They're getting paid what they're worth, which is a lot of money because they're top-notch pros. Now, if you're not necessarily at their level, but you are a pro in your city, and you're a good musician and your band is good, well, then you should be charging what's applicable for what that band is worth. Now, some guys will say, well, my band's worth $300 a night. Okay, there's tons and tons of bands out there that are worth $300 a night. But the problem with those bands is that the people that are hiring them they don't care about the music. They don't care about you. They don't care about what you bring to the table. They don't care if you're pro, amateur, you work as a disc jockey. They don't care. All they care about is how much money they're going to make off you while you're on stage. So if you sound decent, people are dancing, they're having a few drinks, they're going to hire you. The lower that the rate is, the better they are for making them happy. The better it is for making them happy because they're making more money. Now, the pro musicians that are in really good bands, yeah, they want to work and they want to charge a little bit more money. Now, you're going to get return customers and they're going to be happy and they're going to want to come and see you play if your band is really good. So I played in lots of situations where the band was a regular in a venue, pro band, playing in a paying gig, and the audience started to get to know you. So the band shows up every couple months, let's say, and the audience is there and they actually are cheering for you, and you develop a fan base because they come to see you perform. Those bands, they deserve to get paid a little bit more money. They're making money for the owner. They're developing a fan base. People are actually requesting them. This happened to me many, many times where the owner will contact me and say, because I was a band leader, Tim, we haven't had you guys here for a while. People are asking for you. Are you available? And they give me a bunch of dates and we try and negotiate a wage for the gig, blah, blah, blah. So that's how that part of it works. But that's not exposure. That's paid professional gig, and I'm developing a fan base for the band, and I'm making money for the venue. Everybody's happy. The exposure thing, the only person that wins is the bar owner or the venue owner. And that's it. The band gets screwed every time. So guys, I know that you're going to hit me up in comments about this sort of thing, but this is just my opinion, and I respect other people's opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just telling you what I think from a professional musical perspective. Now, like I said, if you're a weekend warrior, you're making $300 playing at a bar, I'm not putting you down, but I'm just saying that by only playing for $300, you're cutting the industry's throat. And this is what's happened. So the next band shows up, and they're actually a pro band, and they're really good, and they ask for $700. Double. Well, we can get that other band we had in here last week for $350. We'll get them in here and we'll make more money. So the good band that's really great with pro musicians that are trying to feed their families just like anybody else on a job, they get kicked out of the gig. They lose the gig to these other bands that cut rate and are willing to work for peanuts. Don't devalue yourself. That's the moral of this story. Do not devalue yourself. Get paid what you think you're worth. So if you think you're worth more money as a band or even as a personal an individual in a band, and you're negotiating a wage that you're going to get paid, make sure that it's fair for you and for the venue, the band, etc., etc. Don't devalue yourself. So that is how I feel about the whole exposure thing. And like I said, I've done it, but in 2024, it's dead. I want to thank all you guys that have been leaving me comments, and I want to thank even the commenters that have been leaving me the angry or the the haters out there, whatever. There's not a lot of them, but I don't get upset. My skin is pretty thick. I've been doing this a long time, and it doesn't really bother me. But I'm just trying to inform you guys about the scene. So just think a little bit before you get out there with your angry comments and stuff. Just try and put yourself in my shoes and in the professional musician's shoes, okay? And think about your own job. Imagine you show up at your job and they're like, we don't really value you so much, so we're gonna give you chicken wing and beer this week for payment. Because guess what, people? Chicken wings and beer don't pay the mortgage. On that note, thanks very much for watching. And as always, keep drumming. See you in the next video. Take care.